If anyone wants to be an overseer, they must manage their own family well and see that their children obey them with proper respect. 1 Timothy 3, 4 and 5. Before we go any further, why not stop the video and discuss what you are expecting to see in a leader's family. If you aspire to leadership in the church, what would you be hoping to see in your family? Are we talking about questions of control here? As in, the pastor's kids get a lot less leeway in their growing up than the rest of the kids in the church. Their behaviour has to be exemplary. Their obedience has to be unquestioning. Or should we be asking other questions about, say, proper development and about growth into maturity? What kind of thing did Paul mean by managing a family well, and what would he have thought of as proper respect? We should read Ephesians 5, 21 to 6, 9. Now let's notice the order of things here. Wives are mentioned before husbands. Children are mentioned before parents. Slaves are mentioned before masters. In the culture of the day, this is the wrong way round. You don't bother telling the wife, the child or the slave what to do. Save your breath and tell the husband, the parent or the master. Because the former are legally almost nobodies. The latter are their responsible somebodies. And what Paul is telling them to do is to submit, to obey, which seems like even more of a waste of time because that is what they have to do anyway. But then the difference is that their obedience and submission is to be of a piece with their submission to the Lord Jesus. So they will be submitting because they know that to do so is right. 5:23, 6:1. And therefore it will come from the heart. 6:6. And from a belief and trust that to submit in this way is ultimately completely in their best interests. What's in view here is submission and obedience that stems from genuine respect, that is rooted in faith in Jesus. Now imagine that someone's heart is so set on leadership that they read this passage and the passage in 1 Timothy chapter 3 and set about tyrannising their partner, their children, their employees. Less than total obedience in everything, and their dependents are going to be punished for letting the side down. Nothing less than the model household is ever going to be acceptable. Resistance is like unto the sin of rebellion and will not be tolerated. Is that person the kind of leader Paul has in mind for the church? Is that what he means by proper respect or managing well? No, it isn't. Read chapter 5, verses 25 to 33, and we see that straight away. When Paul gets around to addressing himself to the power side of the relationship, he is talking about holding power and giving yourself for the powerless. About, in chapter 6 and verse 4, not using your power for your own ends, but for theirs. Yeah, heavy-handed discipline. Are we strict because they need us to be, or is the need located somewhere in us? He's talking about the more absolute your power is over someone, as with slaves and masters, chapter 6 and verse 9, the greater is your fear of abusing it. Now, that's the sort of person who can claim to be managing their family well and whose children will obey them with proper respect, isn't it? And aren't these the only sorts of leaders that the church really needs? Because God himself identifies as a husband, indeed as a wronged husband. Read Jeremiah 31, 31 to 34 for just one example. And now, is he the kind of wronged husband who ends the relationship, chucks it all away, or who enforces obedience? Does he set himself instead to fulfill the relationship? God, of course, identifies as Father. What kind? In Luke 15, 11 to 32, what kind of Father are you seeing? How does he rate on issues of control, on enforcement, on the protection of his honour? Are his children model children? How does his parenthood enable his children to develop? In another parable, that of the talents in Matthew 25, 14 to 30, God identifies as master. What kind? The kind who rules the household with an iron hand? Or who gives his servants room to grow and develop and spread their wings? God identifies as husband, parent, and master. In his church, the leaders need to be those who see those roles his way. If you have been, thanks for joining in.